Welcome to Mind Your Heart podcast, your favorite corner of the internet where we chat about all things mental health. I'm Emily.
And I'm Trina. Together, we're like your real-life Lorelai and Rory Gilmore. Each week, we'll bring you real conversations about the world of mental health, and we will peel back layers on topics like anxiety, depression, and much more.
We're here to chat with you about the tough stuff, the everyday stuff, and everything in between. So grab your emotional support water bottle, I know we have ours, find your comfiest chair, or keep your eyes on the road, and let's get into it. Are you ready, Mom?
Absolutely. Join us as we mind our hearts and hopefully make minding yours a little easier. Welcome back.
Hi!
Hi!
Now I'm yelling. Before this, we were testing our audio, and Jake and you were saying that I was loud sometimes.
You are not loud. It was a one time.
Yeah, where I said,
loud.
no!
Yeah, which is like so Monica of you.
That's
so
true.
I think I had no
pretty
problem.
On brand for me.
Yeah. I actually laughed and thought that was funny.
Okay.
So I thoroughly enjoyed that part.
Okay.
Yeah. So we
should we like introduce ourselves each episode?
Maybe.
Because I feel like I was thinking about this because I'm like, whenever I'm listening to Nick Vial, and he's like,
Nick Vial.
he's
Shout
like,
out Vial.
Yeah, he's like, I'm your host, Nick, and then he goes on.
Yeah.
I'm like, I kind of feel like we should do that too.
Okay.
Not just assume that everybody knows from the beginning.
You're right. All right. So
I'm Emily.
And I'm Trina.
And we're your hosts for the Mind Your Heart podcast.
Yeah.
And we're happy you're here to mind your heart with us.
We are happy that you're here. And we are a mother-daughter dynamic duo. And we actually have a guest today. We have sweet Daisy Mae Tonsky.
I was like, we do?
Yeah. It's invisible.
Yeah. Hi, Daisy.
So we've got Daisy here, my little grand fur baby. Yeah. Hi. So
if you're watching, you can see her cute little face perk up.
So cute. Yeah. Anyway, so let's get started. Today we are talking about
body image, self-esteem, self-confidence, and we want to give you a little bit of a trigger warning before we go into this episode, just so that way we can give you a heads up about the content we'll be discussing. We'll be talking about body image, weight, which can be sensitive for many people for different reasons. We understand that they can be triggering, and we want to prioritize your well-being first. So if you feel like this discussion might be too difficult for you, please feel free to skip this episode or listen with a trusted friend or a family member, somebody who can support you. And yeah, remember that your mental health comes first.
Yes, your mental health always comes first. We aim to create a supportive and safe environment, and we want you to take care of yourself. That's really important to us. And if at any point you feel overwhelmed or triggered, it's perfectly okay to step away, take a break. Please reach out to a mental health professional if you need support. There's so many different things that are available, so many more than ever before, so that's very exciting. Thank you for listening, and let's take care of our hearts and our minds together.
Yes.
Yes.
While you were looking, like your eyelashes are so long.
Really?
Yeah. They look like you have extensions.
Okay, so kids used to say that to me when I was little. I mean, not when I was little. When
they were little.
When they were little and I was teaching. And I remember letting this little girl, such a sweet little girl, like pull them so she could see for herself that they were real. But the thing is, as I've gotten older, that doesn't last. Like, they don't grow like they did. I used to have really long eyelashes.
Are you using a different mascara?
I have like a combo mascara going on right now. They look long. Good. Because that was like one thing about my body, speaking of body image, one thing that I liked about myself was that I had long eyelashes and that my eyes were green, which is more of a rare, in this very brown-eyed dominant culture. Yeah. I was like, yay, my eyes are green. But and I had long eyelashes, but as I've gotten older, like I said, they feel like they're fading away. Like they're not like they were. So I found a good mascara, and I guess it's working right now.
Yeah, it looks really good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like
That's
it.
exciting.
I mean, not that they ever look bad, but I'm like, they look extra long right now.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to take that as a compliment. And do you see how I took that as a compliment?
Yeah, you received that.
I didn't put it myself down or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that I talked about well, I feel like I mentioned Teresa in every episode. Shout out to one of my best friends, Teresa. But a little while ago, we were like talking about like compliments and stuff, and I like tended to like kind of be like, oh yeah, well, and like make some sort of almost excuse for like why it maybe wasn't true, or and she was like, why don't you just say I received that? And she's like, I'll do that too. So now every time, like, if we talk and she says something nice to me or I say something nice to her, we're like, I received that. Thank you. And then we just keep going.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think that could be a really big help to me.
Yeah.
Because I have a very hard time accepting compliments.
Yeah.
Like the thing that's interesting is the eyelash part, like, has been told to me so many times. And then I felt good about, so it was easier to receive.
Yeah.
It's the things that, like, this is silly, but I was meeting with a friend of mine online, and I have had this infection on my eyelids. I know, it's so annoying. Yeah. That's like scaly, itchy, and it's like been really annoying. Very itchy, like I just want to scratch my eyelids off. And it's finally going away. Like, it's finally, you can't see it anymore. I'm still using the cream. I'm going to follow that through for a few more days.
Yeah.
But so I haven't been, this is the first time I've worn makeup in like a week.
Yeah.
And she's like, you don't have any makeup on? And I'm like, no. And she's like, you look great without makeup. And I'm like, what? Because it's not something that I feel about myself. And so I, get worried. And the older you get, the more you're like, oh, but you can see brown spots, and you can see lines, and the whole list goes on and on.
Yeah.
And so then I like second guess myself. All right. So let's are we going to talk about highs and lows at the beginning? Okay.
Yeah, I think we should.
Okay.
So we're thinking that we would start each episode with a high and a low. The way that I normally do this in my small group, like at church, is I'll say, like, you start with your low so that you can end on a high note.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, you want to go first? Or do you want me to go first?
I can go first.
Okay.
Yeah. My low for the week, like, this is...
Yeah. I mean, like... As I'm sure everybody listening can probably guess, we batch episodes. So, like, today we're filming 4 different episodes. So as things will go on, like, we're going to be talking about our highs and lows, but they'll be from, like, the past few weeks.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So, yeah, I guess my biggest low is probably I had a, like, upsetting thing happen with my longtime, like, best friend of 20 years. And so I feel in a way as if I lost a friend, and that has been like really hard and upsetting. And like also I haven't been able to concentrate. Like I just, and the interesting part is that I feel like, as life goes on, you go through different seasons with different people, and people have told me that before, friends that were like ready to kind of let me go. And I was so devastated by that. And I mean, I understand more what she was saying now, but I didn't understand that, and I was so upset. But what's
the thing that people say? It's like you have people in your life for different seasons, different reasons. What's the other one?
I don't know.
In like a lifetime, maybe? I don't know.
But
there's like different...
But for me, I don't want to ever let people go. It's really hard for me to let people go.
Well, I think that is something that you and I talked about.
Yeah.
Like, because I also have been experiencing this similar thing. And according to my expert in the stars, Teresa, she said that relationship stuff is like changing right now. Like, that's like a common theme.
Okay.
Which I was like, makes a lot of sense to me. I hear you. But it's like the expectation of friendships and like their duration is not something anyone ever really discusses, because it's like, and this is what I was telling you, that because like I'm like you in that way too, that I'm like, I am loyal, like I'll be by your side, like I am here until the end. But it's like, then like some people they're just not like that, which is not a good or bad thing.
But you kind of feel like, I mean, I'm like, I want a best friend for life.
Yeah, that's like, how I feel too.
We're gonna grow through this, and we're gonna go. And maybe eventually we will have some kind of communication about it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just know that like you have to allow yourself to go through the feelings, but like it almost feels like grief, feelings of grief, but I'm not even
ambiguous loss. It's basically something like when it feels like a loss when the person has not died, but it feels like you're grieving.
Feels like a loss.
I don't know what the word is.
Yeah. But I'm like still kind of stuck in the anger phase.
Yeah.
Like I'm starting to move past that, but I still am a little, because it just feels so, felt like so out of left field and so hurtful that, yeah. So that's my low. And that's my low. Do I tell my high, or do you tell your low and then I tell my high? No, I'll just tell my high. Okay. So, my high is that I am a huge fan of Hugh Jackman. In fact, when I got divorced, I actually considered changing my name
or McConaughey
to Jackman or McConaughey. And as time
who was also in the movie. He was one of the Deadpools.
I thought I heard his voice. Yeah. Like, I was like, was that McConaughey? I really did think that. It was. So, okay. So that's interesting. I didn't notice that, but I'm still like, I'm like diehard Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
McConaughey has faded, unfortunately for me.
Well, but he's happily married.
Yes. And Hugh Jackman is divorced.
Yeah.
So I was like, yes. Yeah. I mean, not that I'm happy he got divorced, but yes. Yeah. Yes. I'm not that I even, yeah. Anyway. There's a possible shot. So I love him. I went to see him in the Music Man. I got to sit in the front row and it was like, you know, they're doing their little number in the beginning and you don't know that he's on stage. He's like sitting in the train and you don't recognize him. And I was searching, like I was like looking at all the people, but I don't know how they did it. Cause all of a sudden he stood up and it wasn't like he was there before.
Yeah.
And the whole crowd is completely silent. And I go, like really loud in the theater. And I was sitting on the front row and they just carried on like I didn't do that, but he looked right at me and winked. And I was like, oh my gosh, I thought I was going to die. I left that show and cried. I started crying because I was like, and then I found out that he was actually outside signing autographs and Nanny and I left. Oh. I know. I felt
that actually
sick to my
me
stomach.
Just
I know.
When you said that.
I was so upset. So it was just such a magical time. Like that was one of my favorite memories. And I love him. And so he's in a movie, Deadpool Wolverine, with Ryan Reynolds, who I also really like. And the two of them are so adorable together. Yeah, and it's all over social media. And even by the time this comes out, it'll probably still be. Yeah. Because the movie just came out when we were filming it like yesterday. Yeah. Or the day before. And so it'll still be going at least in a week or so. Yeah. Let's hope so. So, that was my high, was going to see Deadpool Wolverine by myself. I had a delicious junk food fest and I highly enjoyed myself. I was laughing, even though there were parts that I was laughing and no one else was in the theater. I'm like, I don't care, because I just think Ryan Reynolds with his quick wit is just...
Yeah, he's so funny.
He's so funny.
He's got good comedic timing.
I think so too. And he just, like, even if you're in a bad mood, I also love that Ryan Reynolds is so open about his mental health. And like his depression, and
I haven't really seen that.
Oh yeah, he's really good about talking about that. Yeah,
I mean, I already loved him anyways, so it just makes me love him more.
It's really cool. Like, yeah, he talks about that, and yeah. So I just love, that's been my high, is seeing all the things with Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, Daisy's trying to
escape. Yeah. All right, go on.
So my low has to do with kind of losing a friend as well. That's been like, and it was unexpected. Yeah. And felt a little, like I felt very caught off guard. It didn't seem like a situation where that was going to happen. But yeah, in the world that like I grew up in with social media and stuff, like I'm used to like being able to see somebody like view my story, like so like that is weird, but then like noticing that the person like has unfollowed me like on all social media, I was like, oh, okay, like this is like like done. So it was hurtful and like really sad. I was angry and like I don't know, like I opened up the space for us to talk about it, and I just kind of been ghosted. So
Yeah,
I don't think that's ever happened to me in a friendship. Like, I've lost friends, but it was never like just like being ghosted. Yeah. So yeah, that was my low, definitely. I think my high was probably, so this past week when all that was happening, like, I was definitely trying to like get some rest because I was so tired. But on, I think it was Thursday, I was like, you know what, like, I'm gonna do like a little self-care day. Like, I slept in, and then I went to go get coffee at this new coffee shop that opened up near us. And then I went to our library, and it was so cute. Like, it was just like, it's so clean, and like, it's big, and I didn't even know that like some libraries have like a sheriff just like posted up there. Yeah, like just sitting in the front lobby, like just checking, like not doing anything really.
Why?
I guess for safety reasons, because it's a government facility. I don't know.
That's weird.
I was like, all right. I mean, she looked nice, so
okay.
I was like, okay. And and then like on the outside, like on the lining of the whole library, there was like these like cafe booths basically. So like that's where I sat.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I like got my library card, and I was like excited about that because I've been reading a lot more lately. So I was like, I'm gonna go in and get my library card, and they gave me one that like goes on your keychain, and I was excited about that.
That's cool.
So yeah, that was my high.
Yay.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good high. For the library. I mean, I need to go. I haven't been to a library and it's such a magical place. So I'm like, what is wrong with me? I need to go to the library. It was
so nice. Yeah. I enjoyed it so much. Oh, and then that same day I went to, I got back to Rumble boxing, which is like, boxing like workout class.
Yeah, that's cool.
That I love.
That's when you were like, I'm whatever to rumble, and I was like, I'm ready to rumble. Well, like, I thought you were fighting.
You had called me while I was like, I'd already like started putting on my wraps.
Yeah.
And I like didn't answer, so I texted you, and I was like, I'm at Rumble, and you were like, you're in a Rumble?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I'm not in a Rumble. Yeah, I'm at Rumble boxing.
Yeah. I misunderstood, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
And I was like, what a weird way of saying I'm in a fight with someone.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Anyway, okay. So today, we did our highs and lows.
Yeah.
We're ready to talk about body image.
What's this piece of hair?
This.
Yeah, it's like tucked weird.
Okay. Better?
Come. Okay.
All right. There we go. So, I think the reason that like I thought this would be a good one to talk about was because I was very, like, when I saw the video that we did of our first recording session, I felt like, oh my gosh, my arm, I look so fat, I look so bad, and I like really like started beating myself up. But I've been doing a lot of mindset work with Teresa, also with you, and I was like, no, I can't say these things about myself, and I need to just get over it, because first of all, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter. And secondly, like the like holding yourself back because you don't feel comfortable with your body is
a shitty feeling.
Is a bad feeling.
Yeah.
It's a bad feeling. And so I started thinking about like where that comes from, why I feel that way, or like how hard on myself I've been, or how that's directly impacted you. And so, and also, like, I have questions for you because you've done a lot of work on this. I have questions about, like, how you talk about this. Is it ever appropriate to talk about weight? Is it ever appropriate to talk about, like, how you look? Is it a bad thing to care about how you look? Like, all these things that I wonder around body positivity.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I know I've been listening to Beyond Beautiful,
which we'll have the link to in the description.
Show notes, yeah. And I've been listening to the audio version. The audio version, the narrator is such a huge part of an audio experience, and I'm not in love with her.
I wonder if it's the actual author or not, because I feel like the author is from like a different country.
No, then it's definitely not.
Okay.
Yeah, the narrator, I don't know, just the way that she says some things, I'm like, I wouldn't read it in my head like that. Like it's grating on my nerves. But I also think that part of it is she talks about like different times in the world, like in society. And I grew up in, I mean, when I was born in the 70s,
Yeah.
and then I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, basically. I mean, I don't remember a lot about the 70s. What I remember is Cindy Crawford and Kate Turlington and like all these supermodels that were absolutely beautiful and very, very thin. And that being the like standard
Ideal picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my mom was very much about like what she looked like and how she looked. I mean, my grandmother, I feel like my grandmother taught my mom that her only value was based on her looks. And I realized that as an adult. Like my grandmother, I put her on a pedestal for most of my life. I thought she was the most amazing person ever. I loved her so much. She taught me about God. She rescued us when my mom and dad got divorced. They took care of us and they loved us. We spent a lot of time with them. She helped me learn how to read. I have dyslexia. She paid for a tutor. She read with me every single day.
Yeah.
She was very involved. They were very involved grandparents. And so I thought they were the greatest. I still think they're the greatest.
Yeah.
However, I did learn as an adult that the damage that my grandmother did to my mom and how much pressure she put on my mom to always look beautiful. And like there's so much more worth to my mom than just what she looks like.
For sure.
And I don't even know if she knows that.
Yeah.
And so that is like something that I realized, and I'm like, where does this come from? And it came from, I know I watched my grandmother do that. I watched her do that to my mom. She'd tell my mom to stand up straight. She would, I don't remember her doing that to me. I don't remember her telling me to stand up straight. I don't remember that pressure from her, but I definitely saw her do that to my mom.
Yeah.
And it felt like it got worse when she was older, like because she lived to past 100.
Yeah.
And I felt like, and the things that she would say to my mom, like my mom should, because she was adopted, that she should be grateful and things like that made me really angry at the end of her life, because I'm like, you're the one that should be thankful. Like you got the gift of my mom as your daughter. Like that is such a gift.
Yeah.
And so that felt really frustrating. But I just felt like she put a lot of pressure on her with weight. She put a lot of pressure. She was very thin too. Like Nanny's, is very thin. But she would walk around. I remember this is where the pressure I felt came on me. She would walk around. We would be at a department store and she would pick up like a dress and hold it on the hanger and then cinch it at the waist. So she never looked at clothes that weren't completely cinched in with a very skinny waist. And that's what I did. Like that's what I was like, okay, you have to have a really skinny waist. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, she's like, hold your stomach in. And like, I learned how to walk around. I have my stomach held in right now. Like I learned how to walk around.
And I remember you telling me that when I was younger too, that you're like, if you do it for long enough, you
don't even notice it.
Yeah.
I know, but like, that's so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Why would you tell someone? I will tell you, it's definitely given me like those top abs. But I'm like, that's uncomfortable. And why should that be an expectation that you walk around holding your breath, basically?
Yeah.
Because that's kind of what it feels like. And so it was like, I just felt like it was always a big deal. And I mean, I can't imagine growing up actually in your lifetime, though, with social media and the pressure and the expectations of influencers in social media is I think would be even harder. So I know where some of that comes from me. And I also felt like, I don't think my mom meant for me to feel this way, but I felt like the ugly duckling of the family. Like I remember hearing her say one time, and this is on a recording. She said, Trina doesn't look anything like me. And sometimes I'm like, she doesn't look like me. She just said something like that about me not looking like her. And as if like, I don't know where this child comes from. Like she doesn't have my beauty and my looks. And I just remember I've heard it multiple times because I've heard that recording.
Yeah.
I had that tape. I still have that tape somewhere.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that was hurtful. And did I hear that when I was a child? I felt that way. Yeah. I felt that way even with my mom and my brother when it was just the three of us because I feel like he's a really attractive guy and she's so pretty and I'm just like, eh. And so that sucks.
Yeah.
That's a really crappy feeling. It feels bad. And then when she would even say things to me, like she wanted me to model with her. And we would do these modeling things. And I never felt like I didn't feel comfortable.
Yeah.
I didn't want.
How old were you?
Oh, I was pretty little, actually.
Yeah.
The first time I modeled with her, I was little, like 4 or something like that.
Wow.
But I don't remember that. I remember being like in that awkward, like 10, I don't know. And then I remember modeling in, which used to be called Moss Brothers. It was a department store. And I didn't really want to do it. I remember really not wanting to do it. I loved clothes and stuff like that. Like I was really into clothes, but and fashion and things like that. But I did it, and then I came home like later on that day, and I had a friend over, and that friend and I were in my bedroom joking around with each other. I was in like 8th grade, maybe ninth grade, like something like that.
Yeah.
And and I was like getting ready to go get like us some drinks or something like that. And I got up and I was like, and I said to the friend, and like, if you have little ones in the room, plug their ears. And I said, fuck you, to my friend as a joke, because like we're teenagers and teenagers often cuss because they're trying to like figure themselves out.
I remember in 5th grade, I like had to walk the field because I got caught cussing so much.
Oh, that's funny. So I said that, and I didn't actually talk like that very often. And I never heard my mom talk like that. I don't think I've ever even heard her say that word ever. And
I had a dream that she said that.
That's funny.
The other day, like that she was just like saying fuck, and I was like, all right.
Yeah, because that's not like her. So I like opened the door to my room while I said that, and she was standing there, and she was like, "Oh, Trina!" And she started crying, and she was so upset. She was so mad, and I remember going into her room, and I'm like, and she wanted my friend to leave. Like she wanted her to leave right then. She blamed it on my friend. She said that she was a bad influence on me, and I was like, and she's like, and I was so proud of you when you were modeling, and I was like, what?
What does it have to do with?
Yeah, it was like I did something that she was proud of, but then I spoke in this nasty, terrible way.
And you took it all away.
And I took it all away. Yeah. And I was like
first the only thing that she could be proud of you for was based off of how you looked.
Yeah.
And that she was not proud of you for the way that you acted.
For the way they acted and the way that I spoke. And I was like, first of all, if anyone's a bad influence on anyone, it would be me on my friend. Because I'm the one that said it. So why, I'm the one that said it. She's the one that heard it.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel like a big deal to us because we were joking around. But
in 8th grade.
Yeah. So Nanny got really mad, whatever. I talked her off the ledge. Like she didn't make my friend leave. But she wasn't happy that I did that. But it was, I don't know, it was just stuff like the looks.
The pressure was on how
just
you
felt
looked.
like, and then I have always put that pressure on myself. And I felt uncomfortable in my body. When I was like a teenager, I was really self-conscious about my thighs and probably my butt. Now, I lived in a time where we didn't have Kim Kardashian, unfortunately. I wish. Yeah. Because then I would have felt better about the lower part of my body.
Yeah.
I did feel confident enough. I had a good stomach. Like, because I held my stomach in all the time. So I felt confident with that part of my body.
A good stomach is...
Yes, you're right. You're right.
It's another
It's all
thing.
relative because it was good for the 80s. It was good for the 90s.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't mean you have a good stomach just because it's flat.
Yeah, it doesn't mean it's good or bad. It's just a stomach. Like, it's just part of your body. Yeah. And that's part of what Beyond Beautiful talks about, is like very much so kind of like neutralizing like your stance on yourself, because there's a lot, like the body positivity movement has become really big over the past decade, which is like love yourself and like feel great in your body, and like that's great, like of course like you want to feel like that, but it's also unrealistic to expect that that's just gonna be like how you always feel, that you just like love and feel great about every part of yourself, because that's just not, it's just not realistic. But like what like we should be also that's like ignoring things that maybe you actually do feel. Like if you do feel uncomfortable about something, then like you're just kind of masking it with whatever else. But I think like with thinking about like your body as a neutral thing, like just as a actual like anatomy, it shifts things so much. Even when I was in Bali for the retreat, and we were talking a lot about like our cycle, and more about like why things happen and like how they happen and like what's connected to this and that. Now every time I get my period, I'm like, this is so cool. Like my body is like literally like shedding something and starting anew. Like it goes through this cycle for 30 days where like men go through hormone cycles 24 hours. So like for women, like we're in a cycle for like 28 to 32 days. Like our whole cycle happens over basically a month, whereas a man's cycle happens over a day. Like no wonder there are things like it just explains things. And I'm also like, man, like women are badass. Like that's wild. Like it just makes me appreciate those things more. Whereas like when you think of it as a negative or a positive, it's like, oh, I'm in so much pain, which like I get horrible period cramps, so like I don't love that part. But they're just like neutralizing it into like what it actually is. Like your stomach is a stomach. Your stomach is something that holds food and digests and allows you to have energy. Like it goes through this process. You digest your food, it comes out, and then you start over again. Like it's like a holding ground for your energy. And like when you think about it like that, it's like, well, how can I be like it's good or bad? Like it's something that keeps me to survive. It's something that holds energy for me.
It feels like that's like I feel brainwashed though.
Yeah, well, for sure. I mean, we live in a world, and this is what I was gonna say when you're talking about Grandy, is like she grew up in a much more like oppressed version for women, where like women were only known to like do things just for men, and how like it appeased men. So like her systemic view on like a woman in general was a lot more warped than it is now today. Like now things she would say today would be like, she'd be canceled on the internet. So but it's just like, it's not, and that's something that the book talks about too, is how a lot of these things are ingrained in us.
It's like generational.
And it's a systemic issue. It's not just like,
it's like the value of women from the beginning. All along.
And just seeing stuff on a magazine, like the women you see on magazines are not plus size models most of the time. Like unless you're like picking up a different kind of magazine that's specific to that. But then like, why does that have to be specific to that? Like there's nothing that shows anybody who's in like a normal, I don't want to say normal, like in a weird way. But it's kind of like
not, it's like not representing a variety of bodies.
Yeah.
Or even a variety of skin colors.
Yeah.
Or a
and they're
variety
distorted.
Of nationalities. Like it's really typical, a very thin white woman. So there is like so much wrong with that picture. Than even just your body. Because, I don't know. And then I'm like, do I... like with this like shift in like looking at a variety, because I think about like what has been considered beautiful along the history, and like supple, curvy, women were considered beautiful at one time. And so then you wouldn't have to worry about your stomach or your thighs or your butt or whatever. Like that was considered, you were considered wealthy and prosperous. And so, and like how much that's changed and how that shifts our view. And then I'm like, and then like how it impacts like your health, as far as your health too. What's healthy? What's healthy for your body? What, like, where's your heart at its optimal, level, and all those things. And because then I get confused, because I'm like, I know also, like, I feel uncomfortable when my body gets to a certain point. And even when you were just talking about cycles, like when you stop having that, when you're no longer having cycles, you feel it's like a worthless kind of feeling. Like
but
you're no longer
still going through a hormonal cycle.
It's going through a hormonal cycle, but it's no longer doing what you feel like it was originally intended. You're no longer creating a space for life.
But somebody has put that in your brain, because like as a woman, your original intent is not only to have a baby.
Yeah.
Like you and I want to, like, you wanted to have babies like since you were young, and I want to have babies when I get older. Like that is not my intent for being on the earth, like just because I'm a woman. Like they're like, take transgender women, for example. Like their specific purpose for being on the earth is not to have a baby. It's just to exist. It's just to be. Yeah. So like when you're in a different cycle of your hormones, when it's not shedding the lining, you're not bleeding, like you are doing exactly what your body's intended, because that's how you were created. Yeah. Our bodies are created to go through menopause at a certain age and still continue to change and do different things. Yeah. And I think that's the thing that is so disappointing about this societal outlook, is that the idea of change is bad. Yeah. Like the way that our bodies change and mold, like it happens every day. Every single day, some part of us changes. Like if you really think about it from like a microscopic lens, like we shed so much skin during the day, like hair falls off, like we learn at least one thing during the day, which like I'm sure we learned thousands of things like that go into our brain. Like there's so much change that's happening, but like the world is like afraid of change for whatever reason, because it doesn't look or feel, or we don't know, we're not in control. So, but like you, as a woman, like your only purpose is not to have a baby.
No, you're right. And it's so funny to even catch myself in that mindset, because I don't think that is the only worth of women. So it's interesting to see how much of that is ingrained in your brain and you don't even realize it. Like even this just now, I'm like, I'm shocked to find myself saying that. And I'm like, because that's not how I consciously feel, but on some level, have I felt that way?
Or somebody's told you that.
Or someone's told me that,
also,
or
I mean,
that
like,
you're not relevant as you get older. And
I mean, have you seen the things that they've been saying about Taylor Swift? They're like, she's the most successful woman in the world, but she's childless. She's unmarried.
Yeah, and
that's
I think
what they're talking about?
Yeah.
That's crazy to me.
And also
she has done so much.
That's a lot. That's happening as a political stance as well.
For sure.
Like the fact that we're going to say that somebody, like that person that's childless doesn't have any value, is absolutely outrageous. It's just absolutely outrageous. Yeah. And because that's not what makes you, you're right, that's not what makes you have value. And some people choose not to have children, and that's their choice. Yeah. That's their choice. Okay. Yeah. It doesn't mean that there's not. And I guess if we continue that kind of thinking, that's the same kind of thinking that my mom grew up with. That's you're just telling them that you're only valuable for that one thing. And I mean, and then you have, which is really sad and upsetting. Yeah. So, which I feel like is like a whole nother
for sure topic. I mean, like this specific episode could be a million episodes.
Yeah, be a million. So I think that, okay, so.
I know you said you had like specific questions.
Well, I do, because like, is it a bad thing to want to be to want your body to be like, I know when I have gone through different phases of life, like becoming a mother, like watching your body change so drastically was like alarming because your boobs change, your stomach changes, your legs, your butt, whatever. Even with you, like I didn't even really have a stomach. People thought I had a miscarriage because they're like, well, "Where's your stomach?" And I'm like, "It's all in my ass."
Yeah.
And so like I
Yeah.
didn't look 9 months pregnant.
Yeah.
And which was frustrating because you have an image in your
Yeah.
mind. You're like, I want this cute little stomach. I want
Yeah.
everything else to be thin and just a cute little stomach.
Yeah.
And that's ridiculous. And then so you watch your body change, and then after the baby comes, and then you're like, oh my gosh. Then you like, I didn't like myself. Like I didn't like my body. I'm like, this looks terrible. How am I going to do? Like, how am I going to? I think that's sad to feel that way. Like I just, held life. And it's like a process. But sometimes when you see influencers that like have a baby and then they bounce back 2 seconds later, first of all, like,
Well, we have to take into account that a lot of the time when we see that, these people are in a different financial standing. They have different kind of schedule. They have a lot of different kinds of help. They have a lot of different resources that someone on a day-to-day doesn't have. So, because I know who you're talking about right now, and I can picture
also she's
this.
very young. That's another thing to take in
For sure.
consideration.
Yeah.
Your
There's
body definitely
so
bounces
many
back
differences.
at a younger age than it does at an older age.
Yeah.
Although I think it's interesting because it felt like it took me longer to like get back to where I felt comfortable after I had you than it did with Jackson. And Jackson, I gained 60 pounds. So I went through every size. Like I started off with extra small maternity clothes and went all the way to extra large and couldn't fit. Like at the end was just walking around in my robe and just wanted to be in the pool all the time because I was so uncomfortable. And that's the thing though. I'm like, is it like, I don't feel comfortable with where my body is currently. Is that a bad thing? Am I supposed to be embracing who I am and what I am? Or is it all right to have goals for my pants not to be as so tight and my stomach? Or,
Yeah, so my follow-up question to that would be, why don't you feel comfortable?
because my pants are tight.
So why don't you buy a different size pant?
I don't know. I guess I don't want to.
But why?
I don't know. Because I guess I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel as comfortable in my own skin.
But why don't you feel comfortable in your own skin?
I guess because I feel like I feel like my face looks more bloated, my arms look more bloated, my stomach looks more bloated, I guess for that reason.
But why is that what's making you uncomfortable? Because like a lot of the time what I like hear when people are like, well, I just like want to feel this way, or I want to feel this way. Like my follow-up question is always like, why do you want that? Is it because you would feel more comfortable if you looked a different way, so people would look at you differently, and that you would fit a certain image, and that you wouldn't have to go up to the cashier and buy a size bigger pant, and you wouldn't have to look them in the eye while you're sizing up to whatever size you're in? Or is it because like something physically is painful, or like something is physically causing you to not sleep, or like you can't
I definitely
eat,
have
or,
had that.
which like happens with certain foods for sure, but it's like,
but or also if I have gotten to, even when I was pregnant, when I hit a certain weight, my back starts hurting. I can't sleep, my back hurts, my hip hurts. I don't really feel like that's happening right now. But
you're also like, the thing with that too is that like whenever we like get larger, or we like have weight in different areas that's different from where we were, you're still trying to exist in a larger body with your smaller body practices. So like you saying like, I feel uncomfortable because my pants are too tight. Well, like the obvious answer would be like, well, then you need a different size pant. Like we are not meant to fit into clothes. Like, clothes are meant to fit us. So, like, if that is what feels uncomfortable, then, like, the problem is not you. The problem is that you need to go to the store and get a new pair of pants that fit you and that you do feel comfortable in. And, like, if you're feeling like your back hurts when you've gained some weight, are you sleeping in a way that doesn't support where your weight is being held? Are you paying attention to, are you also stressed? Like, what else is coming from those things?
So everything else has to adjust, but you don't have to. Is that what you're saying?
No, because I don't think it's just like a black and white answer.
Okay.
Like, I don't think that it's like, no, you don't ever have to change. And I also don't think it's like, yes, you should always change if you feel this way. Because, like, it's like your answer for things is going to be different than my answer for things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, I don't think it's one way or the other. What I do think is that you have to be really conscious about the why, like, and just continuing to ask yourself why. And if it comes back to the point of, like, well, I want to look this way so somebody thinks this about me, then, like, maybe you need to...
I don't think for me, it's about what someone else thinks. It's about what I think. It's about how I feel more comfortable in my body when my body is smaller.
But why do you feel like that? Why do you feel comfortable when you're smaller?
Because everything feels better. My back feels better. My hips feel better. I feel better. I feel like I can sustain like longer distances of running and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I feel better.
Okay. Well, then I think, like, that's fine, but I also feel like you have to pay attention to, like, is that attainable for you? Like, is the thing that you're trying to reach an attainable goal? Because it's one thing to be like, I feel more comfortable at X weight.
Yeah.
But then you're like, but X weight, like, means I have to work out 3 times a day and every day, and I have to eat this really strict diet, and I can't do this, and that. Then you're trying to squeeze into something you can't.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think that, and I guess the numbers, it doesn't matter so much. It really is more about, like, me feeling comfortable myself. Mm-hmm. I have to sometimes feel like I need to use numbers because I can go too far in a direction that's unhealthy, where I, like, didn't realize that I was looked unhealthy, looked sick. And I'm like, I think I look great. What do you mean? And so I know that I have to be careful. So that's the only reason why it is assigned a number, because I'm like, I'm not striving for something that's unhealthy. Mm-hmm. I don't want to walk around and be unhealthy and be, like, easily get sick or easily like hurt myself or any of those things. I don't have that desire.
Yeah, and the only thing I would say to that is that I think sometimes unhealthy and fat are paired together.
Yeah,
and that's not true. Mm-hmm. Because there are a lot of people who live in larger bodies who are very healthy. Yeah, who are, like, marathon runners.
And then the opposite is true.
Yeah,
you've got people that are very thin that are not healthy. Yeah, that couldn't run a mile if you paid them $1 million. Mm-hmm.
So, like, I think that's another thing just to be like conscious of. Yeah, because it's like, just because you're bigger doesn't mean you're unhealthy. It just means that you look different. You carry your weight in a different place. Like,
and so it just really, it's like by person. Mm-hmm. It's very individualized. Yeah, by person.
And that's why, like, the cycle that we're in as a, like, systemic root issue is so fucked up. Yeah, because especially in the BMI really gets me going. It makes me so angry. Yeah. Because it's very inaccurate. It was made, like, decades and decades ago by a man based off of men. So whenever you go to the doctor and they're like, oh, you're obese. Like, technically I would be obese on the BMI scale. But I work out daily, pretty much. Like, I get some kind of movement. I eat well. Like, I'm able to do things physically. I feel good. Like, I would not consider myself obese in an unhealthy way. I'm in a larger body. Mm-hmm. But, like, when I was a lot thinner than this, I couldn't do all the things that I'm doing today.
Yeah.
So the thing about that is, like, it's another label that we're placing on someone to gauge whether they're healthy or not.
Yeah.
And really, like, that your weight and your BMI is not going to tell you if you're healthy or not. Yeah. Are you taking
your
blood work?
Pressure?
Yeah.
Your cardio effort?
Yeah.
Your
Are you happy?
Your bone
How's your mental
density?
health? Like, there's so many things that go into your health. So, like, the size of a person's body really has nothing to do with that.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. That makes sense. I guess there's a lot more. I have a lot more uncovering to do. What I did realize is that my criticism towards myself was one of the worst things I could have done to you. And I thought I wasn't doing the, like, let me make everything super skinny in the middle. I wasn't criticizing you. I wasn't telling you not to eat certain kinds of foods. I felt like I'm like, all right, I'm okay. I wasn't okay. Like, I was so critical of myself, constantly beating myself up, never feeling good enough, pretty enough, any of the enoughs. Yeah. And that is a terrible thing to pass on to your children. And, I wanted you guys to feel so good about yourself and to feel like you were capable of anything and that you were just two incredible people that could do anything and that you were beautiful and wonderful and all these things. In the meantime, I didn't feel that way about myself at all. And so it was just an example of self-loathing your whole life. Mm-hmm. And like, how do you walk around with if your own mother doesn't feel comfortable or valuable?
Yeah. It's okay. Like, you can forgive yourself for that. You were taught all of these things. It's a really hard cycle to break. And it also takes a lot of, like, conscious effort. Because while, like, I've learned a lot about this, like, I'm not going to be perfect for my kids either. Like, there's going to be times where I'm like, oh, I don't really feel great about this. And they're going to be like, oh. But, I mean, like, you did the best that you could with what you had. And what you had was not an equipped tool belt for that specific situation. So, like, what I would say to people who have younger kids now is, like, to become aware of how you feel about yourself and, like, choose to do the work. Yeah. And also, like, let's stop praising children and teens and adults for what they look like. Yeah. Like, you don't need to tell somebody that they're beautiful all the time. That's a nice compliment to get. Yeah. But, like, your number one compliment and thing that you're proud of someone for should be for who they are, period. Yeah. Not even for the successes that they do. Because then you're placing these standards of, well, I only love you if. Yeah. Like, the thing that more people in general need to hear is, I just love you for being you. Yeah. Period.
Can't you tell someone that they're beautiful and not even mean what they look like?
Yeah, of course. And I don't ever say.
No, I know. Beautiful. I was just thinking that because, like, there's plenty of people that I think are beautiful people. And I'm not talking about what they look like.
Yeah. And I think that, like, comes with, like, the way that you say it. Like, if I was saying that, I'd be like, you're such a beautiful person. Yeah. Like, that envelops their whole being.
Also, in that book, another thing they talk about doing is, like, a lot of mindset stuff. It's a lot of replacing your self-talk. Yeah. And so that you're not instantly, because like I recently went to visit a friend in Jacksonville, and we went paddleboarding, and so, like, she was in her bathing suit, and I was in like a Lululemon, like, tennis skirt and a, like, sports bra, and I took my shirt off, but I was like, oh, I feel uncomfortable. Oh, I'm uncomfortable, and then I was like, no, I'm like, no, you all the self-affirmations that I have been telling myself. I am light. I am worthy. I am alive inside and out. All those things. I'm like, no, those are the things I need to remind myself. And she's the one that started talking about body. And I was like, and I just kept cutting it off. I'm like, we're not going to say, there's definitely things that we all feel about ourselves and where we feel like we have flaws or uncomfortable, but that's not even relevant. The point is that look what we're doing. We're doing a physical activity. We're out here. We're, cause it was not hard. It was not easy. Like we had there was actually a sign that said don't swim because of the riptide, basically. And so it was at one point I had to get down off, like standing and like on my knees, because your body starts acting like a sail.
Yeah.
And so you're like fighting against the wind and the current, and you're like, holy cow, I'm not going anywhere. Like spinning around in a circle. So I just think, so I felt proud of myself, because I'm like, I could have easily been like, oh, my stomach. And even we took a picture and I had my shirt off and I was like, I don't care. It's all right. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to accept myself for who I am.
Yeah.
And, which felt good, because that is,
it's a lot of weight off your shoulders. Like, it's freeing.
For sure. And I definitely felt that way when I turned 50. I was like, I don't have to worry about this. What difference does it make? But that's silly too. Like, don't go to one extreme to another.
Yeah.
And it's okay to want to feel pretty and want to want other people to think that you're pretty. I think it's just being careful about what you said. But I also think that replacing the language you use to yourself, and not even necessarily, I don't know, sometimes I think I can't allow myself to say that I'm fat, or that I'm like I'm bloated, or I'm whatever, because that's not what I am. That's how I feel in that moment. Doesn't mean what I am.
Doesn't have to be such a derogatory term.
Yeah.
Like, and that's one thing, like, something I've learned from, like, people who are in, like, the plus size, like, modeling industry, and, like, people who are plus size, and, like, they're like, I'm fat. And that's freaking awesome. Like, love that for me. Like, I think that's cool that, like, they're taking it's just kind of like what we talked about, failure.
Yeah.
Like, it's like taking a word that has been framed in such a negative light,
and putting it
and, like,
positive.
just making it what it is. Yeah. Like, first of all, we all have fat. Like, if you don't have fat, then you that's a little bit concerning. Like, then maybe we should talk.
Yeah.
But we all do somewhere on our body. There's fat. Yeah. So, like, we've turned it into this bad term, but it's not. Like, some people just exist in a larger body. Some people exist in a medium-sized body. Some people exist in a small body. And that is all okay. There's no good or bad about any of that.
No. And some people actually struggle to put on weight. Like, that's a serious struggle for them.
Yeah.
And we never, like, give that any, we're always like, oh, I wish that was my problem. But we never give that any understanding or empathy. And that is something to think about too. I don't know. I definitely will be working on the self-talk to myself. That's the thing that I feel like I have control over. I'm not going to stop, like, working out or trying to eat healthy for the most part.
Enjoy. It's things that you feel like are good for you. Like, I don't think
it benefits more than my body. It benefits my bones. It benefits my brain. It benefits my mental health.
Yeah.
And so for that, I'm like, I will continue to want that. But
just about having balance.
Yeah.
Because, like, that I feel like, I mean, everybody should want to have some movement and, like, want to try to put things in their body that are good for them. But also, like, if you want to, like, go to McDonald's every once in a while, then, or, like, go to the movies and have a hamburger or cheeseburger. Then, like,
popcorn.
You shouldn't feel guilty about that. They don't have snow caps at my movie theater.
Yeah, they do at Lakewood Ranch. So. All right. Is there anything that we should add to this?
The only thing that I want to say is just that I'm going to put, like, a bunch of people that I follow on social media that are really, like, great influencers within this topic. So I'll have, like, links to all their Instagrams. That's something that I pay attention to, is like who I'm following. If I'm following somebody on social media and I see their stuff and it makes me compare myself or feel bad about myself, then I unfollow them immediately.
That's a good idea.
And not in a way that I'm like, oh, you're a jerk, but like
No,
in a way that I'm like,
I'm protecting myself.
Yeah, I need to protect my peace when it comes to being online. So I'm going to link all the people that I like highly suggest. I have, all of them are women. There's also a wonderful transgender woman who I love, who talks about this, that I'm going to link below. And yeah, just people that I think are helpful people to have that kind of energy in your feed if you want to give them a follow. So they'll be in the description. But yeah, I mean, I feel like, we could talk about this for a long, long time, but yeah.
Well, it doesn't mean we won't come back to it.
For sure. Yeah. We definitely will.
And
if you have any questions, ask us questions. There is going to be a link in the description of every episode where you can basically like insert for like some free coaching. So if you put your question, you can remain anonymous or not, then we'll kind of coach on it within the podcast towards the end of our podcast once we start to get in some entries with that. So it's free, it's easy, it takes like 2 minutes. Literally just go in there, ask your question, and we'll talk about it. So that'll be available in the description as well. And then, while you're down there, you might as well subscribe and like this podcast. And also give us a review if you're on a listening platform. But yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience.
Of course.
And your forgiveness.
Of course. I love you.
I love you.
And we love you. All right, we will see you next week.